The hybrid sitting constitutes a sitting of the National Council of Provinces. Delegates in the hybrid sitting enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Council of Provinces. For purposes of the quorum, all delegates who are logged onto the virtual platform shall be considered present. Delegates, when they are speaking, must switch on their videos, and they should also ensure that the microphones on the gadgets are muted and must always remain muted unless they are speaking. All delegates in the chamber can connect to the virtual platform as well by inserting their cards to register on the system. The delegates, I've already said that, in the chamber must use the floor microphones, and all delegates may participate in these discussions through the chat room. The interpretation facility is supposed to be active. I'm saying supposed to because we have experienced problems the last times. Permanent delegates, members of the executive, special delegates, and SALGA representatives on the virtual platform are requested to ensure that the interpretation facility on the gadgets are properly activated to facilitate access to the services. Permanent delegates and members of the EXCO in the chamber should use the interpretation gadgets on their desks to access the interpretation facilities. Honorable delegates, in accordance with Council Rule 2291, there will be no notices of motion or motions without notice. Before we proceed to the questions, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome the Ministers of Justice and Correctional Services, Honorable Lumula, and the Minister of Police, Honorable Kwele. Further, I would just like to make the following remarks with regards to the question session. The time for reply by ministers to a question is 5 minutes. Only 4 supplementary questions are allowed per question, and a member who has asked the initial question would be the first to be afforded an opportunity to ask a supplementary question. The time for asking of a supplementary question is 2 minutes, and for the reply, it's 4 minutes. The supplementary question must emanate from the initial question. That is the remarks that we wanted to make, and we will now start with the questions on the question paper, and that is to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. Honorable Minister, I hope the podium mic works. It will be good if you can respond from there. Can you just put on the mic, Honorable Minister, put on so that we can see whether the mic is operational.
Yeah, it looks like it's operational.
Now, since the mic is in working order, we will now call on you to respond to question number 59, as asked by the Honorable TSC Dodovu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson. The final report of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the allegations of state capture, corruption, fraud in the public sector, including organs of state, well known as the Zondo Commission, contain a number of recommendations which can broadly be classified as criminally related where it refers to investigations and prosecutions, administrative related where they deal with capacity, practices, and other steps to be taken, and legislative where they propose the amendments of legislations or the establishment of certain entities in terms of the law. I wish to bring to the Honorable Chairperson's attention and honorable members that government is hard at work in developing the implementation plan for submission by the President as per the court-determined deadline of 22 October 2022. This process is being coordinated by an interdepartmental task team established by the Presidency. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development has established an internal task team to consider the reports of the Zondo Commission and its recommendations. All the recommendations have been analyzed, and a full set of those which fall under my mandate have been identified. The roles of the entities falling under my mandate are set out below. With regards to the criminal-related recommendations, the National Prosecuting Authority, NPA, together with the Directorate for Priority Crimes Investigations, the DPCI, established an integrated multidisciplinary task force to coordinate the response to such recommendations and findings. It includes senior representatives of the DPCI, as well as the heads and additional representatives from the Asset Forfeiture Unit, the Investigative Directorate, the National Prosecution Services, and the Specialized Commercial Crimes Unit within the NPA. The task force focus is to ensure a coordinated response to the work to be undertaken to look at resources and to assist in expediting the investigations and successful prosecution of the matters. The independent directorate takes the lead in investigations and prosecuting the state capture matters. In line with its mandate, the DPCI and offices of directors of public prosecutions are supporting the investigation and prosecutions of matters dealt with by the ID, or are bolstering the capacity of the ID to expedite the investigations and the prosecutions. All the entities forming part of the task force are working in collaboration with each other. The task force is also driving coalition of dedicated resources in appropriate cases. The AFU is also involved to ensure that the proceeds of crime are seized. The Special Investigating Unit constituted a committee chaired by the head of the SIU to consider all the Zondo Commission's reports in the following order. Identify matters that are highlighted by the reports and are covered by already issued proclamations, and those that are not covered by issued proclamations, which require further investigations. Identify matters where civil litigation for cancellation of contracts and recovery is underway, and those matters where SIU will institute civil litigation. Holding officials, executives, directors to account based on evidence and findings. Making referrals to the NPA where evidence points to criminal offense. Referrals of evidence to state institutions for disciplinary actions. Collaborate with other law enforcement agencies on common matters. The SIU is now part of the task force established by the NPA. Blacklisting of companies and directors and referrals to other regulatory authorities. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development will play a key role insofar as the implementation of policy and legislative recommendations are concerned. As Chairperson, I'm now responding to both questions number 2 and 3 asked by Honorable Dudufu. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development has the necessary resources to deliver on its mandate, but the National Prosecuting Authority and Special Investigation Unit do not have. Although the NPA has made important progress in responding to state capture cases within its current budget allocation, it requires additional resources to respond in a full and effective way to the current and future workload stemming from the Zondo reports. Enhancing the capacity and skills of the NPA to effectively prosecute corruption is a national priority. The nature and extent of the alleged corruption described in the Zondo reports highlights the need for bold and innovative approaches to enhance the capacity and skills of the criminal justice entities, including the NPA. The level of sophistication and complexity of the crimes requires the same level of sophistry and complications from even within the NPA, meaning skills for skills. In this regard, the NPA was allocated an additional 1.1 billion over the MTF period to respond to these challenges. 68% of the allocation will be used to enhance the anti-corruption capacity of the NPA through additional staffing in units such as the ID and the AFU. In addition to more skills and capacity, we will be providing the required tools of trade needed to deliver on their important mandate. Critical to the success of the strategy to address corruption is the appointment of suitable senior counsels to support the prosecutions in high-level complex matters in terms of Section 38 of the NPA Act. There's also been a steep increase in the need for expanded witness protection. Security of staff members is also a priority, including to appoint them in terms of the NPA Act itself. Capacity and skills enhanced also require a collaborative approach with multiple partners in the private sector.
As you conclude,
that can assist with sophisticated responses required for such complex crimes, with required attention to be paid to the independence of the NPA and its prosecutorial decision-making powers. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Dodovo, you will be asking the first follow-up question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson. Honorable Minister, your response is quite comprehensive, and it is indeed inspiring that you have put up all the necessary processes, systems, and structures in place to respond to the recommendations of the Zondo Commission. This is highly, highly welcomed, and we are satisfied that you are willing to confront this particular report in the way that will inspire confidence to the people of South Africa. And thank you for that. But what stands out, Honorable Minister, is the fact that this approach will indeed require collaboration and skills that are necessary, and the collaboration with the private sector will be very much important. How will you do this without really compromising the independence of those particular institutions that you mentioned in your response? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dodovo. Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, Honorable Dodovi, we as the government of the Republic are committed to respond to the Zondo Commission's recommendations. And it is indeed in this regard that we will ensure, even for the NPA, that whatever work and collaboration or partnerships they have to enter into or find themselves needing in terms of skills or resources does not compromise the independency of the NPA, because the independency of the NPA is sacrosanct, is the oxygen through which the NPA is able to breathe justice to the people of this country. So we have ensured that whatever processes that requires collaboration should be done through the National Treasury's prescripts. It should be done within the required law and within the required safeguards that will also ensure independency. And that safeguards includes the department, the National Treasury, and also the NPA in a manner that must comply with the PFMA and all the relevant prescripts, including the National Prosecuting Authority Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be asked by Honorable Ms. Kathy Labuskaghni of the TA.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Honorable Minister, it is widely accepted that the NPA currently does not have the resources, and you also mentioned that, financial and human, to effectively deal with the matters resulting from the Zondo Commission. It is also widely accepted that South Africans in general, and I'm sure all of us in this room, would like to see those guilty of state capture being dealt with effectively and speedily. Would the Minister support the establishment of a Chapter 9 Integrity Commission as proposed by Accountability Now, if it can assist in expediting these matters? And if not, why not? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Labuskaghni. Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you. The NPA, as I've said, does have the resources, but the resources is not enough. The two are different, they don't have nothing at all. It's not true. What I have said is that it's not enough, the resources that they have. Hence, they will need collaboration. They will need to work with all of us, including the National Treasury and the various role players in the public and in the private sector, to ensure that they have the resources and also the skills required to prosecute these matters. And with regard to the creation of a Chapter 9 Integrity Commission institution, it's something that, as I've said, the Zondo Commission's recommendations are being considered by the whole of government. And when the president reports to Parliament, he will be able to report on some of these issues. And I can state now that this integrity commission that is being proposed is not one of the considerations that we are looking into, but we are indeed looking into what then becomes a multidisciplinary structure that is able to conform with the United Nations Conventions on Corruption and the Constitutional Court judgment on the Glen Vista matter, including the recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry, so that they have sufficient safeguards in line with the Constitution and the laws of this country, and ensure that the NPA is able to execute its mandate without any fear, favor, or any prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be asked by Honorable Ms. S.B. Leahy of the EFF. Leahy.
Thank you, Chairperson. To date, which cases have been referred to NPA and will be taken to court for prosecution? How many criminal cases have been opened this far? And which measures have been put in place to ensure that there are no delay tactics used by those against whom findings have been made?
Thank you, Honorable Leahy. Could you get the question, Honorable Minister?
Yeah.
Yes, you may respond.
Yeah, no, thank you. There are already matters before courts emanating from the commission, including the SIU investigations. There's a lot of them, which at a go now I may not be able to mention, but the ones that comes to mind is the asbestos matter, the Estina one, and the other matters that are before our courts, including the Bosasa matter. So there are those matters in front of the criminal justice system that are already rolling, which shows the commitment of the law enforcement agencies, the DPCI and the National Prosecuting Authority in ensuring that justice prevails and that there is accountability. The issue of delaying tactics, as honorable members are aware, once the matter is before court, it is now for the presiding officer to case manage the matter and ensure that the matter is finalized as expeditiously as possible. And most of these matters, it is in the interest of everyone, the victims and accused parties, that the matter is expeditiously finalized. And I do believe that our judicial processes and the criminal justice system is well placed to handle these matters in an expeditious manner. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be by Honorable N.M. Hadebe of the IFP.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister. Minister, according to recent media reports, the Chief Justice has cautioned that litigation could potentially delay the findings of the State Capture Commission report and its commission and its recommendations, which is a real concern, considering the critical need to restore faith in the National Prosecuting Authority to prosecute corruption and the need to urgently address corruption. What is the Minister's view on this reality that litigation may be used to delay the Commission's recommendations? And what will the department do to ensure that, despite the right of those implicated to legally challenge the findings, that the recommendations are not delayed or never implemented? Thank you, Honorable Minister and the Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Hadebe. Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you, House Chair. No amount of litigation will delay the work of the law enforcement agencies. The DPCI and the NPA had to gather evidence independently from the commission. And that's why you will remember that at some stage, the president had to allow them, in terms of the regulations of the commission, to gather evidence and use that evidence in their own investigations. And you will also remember that in some of the findings of the commissions, the commission still refers some of the matters for investigation by the DPCI and for prosecution by the NPA. So any litigation on the findings of the commission of review in our civil proceedings does not impact on the work that the law enforcement agencies have already done in gathering evidence, in investigations, and in their decisions. So they will soldier on and do the criminal league of the investigations and that of the prosecutions. We will have to handle and deal with any matter that emanate with regards to the review. We do believe that the justice system and the civil proceedings will be able to handle such civil proceedings, but they will not in any way hinder the work of the DPCI and also of the NPA in prosecuting and dealing with any matter that emanates from the state capture commissions of inquiry.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We will now proceed. Then we come to the question number 62, as asked by the Honorable G. Mikalakis.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you, House Chairperson. The South African Board for Sheriffs is the regulatory authority to investigate any complaints against a sheriff. The board may establish disciplinary committees or appoint an independent and impartial person as and when necessary, who shall be vested the functions relating to a charge of improper conduct assigned to the board. If the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development or the minister receive information that the sheriff acts illegal or unethical, the matter will be referred to the board for it to be able to be investigated and when necessary, for appropriate action to be taken by the board against the sheriff. The board shall, unless an admission of guilty fine has been determined and paid, inquire into a charge of improper conduct by a sheriff. When the board finds the sheriff guilty of misconduct, it may, for example, caution or reprimand the sheriff, cancel the fidelity fund certificate, or impose a fine. If the board is of the view that a sanction of removal should be imposed, it will submit a recommendation to the minister for the removal of the sheriff. The minister may then remove the sheriff from office, or if the minister of the view that a removal is not an appropriate sanction, impose upon the sheriff such a penalty as the board may have imposed. In terms of Section 50 of the Sheriff's Act, 1986, the minister may also suspend a sheriff from office at any time before the sheriff is charged with improper conduct or after or he or she has been so charged. The minister may at any time also cancel the suspension of a sheriff, but the cancellation shall not prevent the sheriff from being charged with improper conduct in accordance with this chapter. In practice, therefore, any complaint against a sheriff will be reported to the South African Board for Sheriffs, which is an independent regulatory authority, which will approach the minister if recommendation is made to 1, suspend, 2, remove, 3, reinstate the sheriff's concern, and as required by the Sheriff's Act. Although Section 52 of the Sheriff's Act, 1986, give the minister certain powers to authorize any person to charge any sheriff with improper conduct and to inquire into the charge, make a finding, and impose a penalty, this provision has not to date been used as the board performs this function. In terms of Section 58 of the Sheriff's Act of 1986, the minister may further in writing direct the board to furnish him within the period specified in the direction with such information as the minister may require in connection with the functions of the board or the financial state of affairs of the board or of the fund. Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first follow-up will be by the Honorable Mr. G. Mikalakis.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Thank you, Minister. Minister, a sheriff in the Free State, one Mr. Mosikile, has multiple criminal cases pending against him. I think your department is thoroughly aware of this case. I have made them aware as well. The Sheriff's Board messed up his first suspension, and now they refuse to reinstate disciplinary steps against him, despite the fact that there are criminal investigations against him. The public whose property he misused and or stole cannot claim from the Sheriff's Board, and all the while we sit with an unethical, possibly criminal sheriff that seems to be untouchable. My question is, will you suspend this sheriff if the facts that I've given you are true, firstly? And secondly, what will you do to ensure that there is an increasing accountability on the part of the Sheriff's Board for rogue sheriffs, and that we do not sit with a situation like this again in the future? Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Mikalakis. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, House Chairperson. There should be no holy cows amongst the sheriffs. If there is any form of misconduct, the code of conduct must creep in. So the honorable member has asked a specific matter, which I have got no facts or information on. I will have to look at it to give an answer whether we can suspend him or ensure that the board continues with disciplinary processes. But it's something that I think the honorable member has mentioned. We'll have to look into the facts of this specific matter. But as a form of a general rule, is that any violation of the code of conduct must be meted with the processes that are encapsulated in the code of conduct for violations, suspensions, as I've mentioned, and all processes must unfold. But obviously, each case must be dealt with on its own merits, and we'll look into the one that he has mentioned. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be by Honorable Audrey Maleka of the ANC. Maleka.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson, and thank you, Minister, for the responses. Honorable Minister, what mechanism is the department using in order to communicate with the public on how to raise their grievances with the South African Board of Sheriffs? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Member. This is an important question, as we should keep in mind that sheriffs are sui generis. As their statutory appointments, they generate their own income, appoint their own personnel, must open their own trust accounts, and are not employees of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. For this very reason, the department on its website, www.justice.gov.za, under frequently asked questions, also created an index that deals specifically with questions about sheriffs, such as who is a sheriff, what does the sheriff do, who regulates the sheriff's actions, and what do you do if you have a complaint against the sheriff. It will link you to the website of the South African Board of Sheriffs, which is www.sheriffs.org.za, where the process to follow by an aggrieved person will be explained, and you will be able to print the forms that you have to complete to lodge a complaint or a grievance with the board against the sheriff. This is also communicated to the public and communities during imbizos and other engagements with them. We agree that much more should be done to make the public aware of the role of the sheriffs and the process to follow should they want to lodge a grievance against the sheriff. It is also important that sheriffs form part of the role players who participate in community engagements. The South African Board of Sheriffs, in its last annual report for the period 2020 to 2021, stated that there has been an increase of 103.9% with searches and their website, with the most viewed is how to locate a sheriff. During the reporting period, the board also received 438 inquiries, of which 254 were formal complaints. 251 of these complaints have been resolved. 4 disciplinary hearings were partly heard during the reporting period, with the same delayed due to COVID-19 restrictions. Since 2017, a total of 10 criminal actions have been initiated by the South African Board of Sheriffs against sheriffs, one of which has resulted in a criminal convictions, and the rest are still pending. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be by the Honorable Mr. S.F. Tutoy of the Freedom Front Plus.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Honourable Minister, with reference to the COVID-19 relief for sheriffs, where the previous board approached the minister to approve payment of relief funds as an initiative to benefit all the members of the profession, to which you acceded in terms of Section 16H of the Act to utilize funds of the SABFS for these purposes. Were there any form of corruption and/or fraud in these payouts to the beneficiaries thereof? And if yes, how did the board or you as the minister intervene in these matters? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tutoy. Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Not that I'm aware of. It has not been reported to us or any in our space. So from where we sat is that we were requested to allow them to provide a relief, which was much needed for the profession, which was not working at the time. And we do believe that that relief did play its role to relieve the sheriffs from the financial constraints and difficulties that they were facing during that period. And we do believe that it helped to save the sheriff's profession. If there was any corruption, it has not been reported, and we are not aware at this stage. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last follow-up for this question will be from Honorable M.S. Mulitsane of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Minister, can the sheriff that has been suspended or expelled due to being found guilty by the board, can the sheriff appeal the sentence and be reinstated to operate again? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Yes, indeed, the Sheriff's Act do provide processes, but once a decision has been taken by the board, that sheriff can't operate. That sheriff cannot get or be issued with a Fidelity Fund certificate to continue operating. That is aimed to protect the public. It is only when the person wants to reapply, issues of rehabilitation, fit and proper will come into play. But once the Sheriff's Board has taken a decision, that person must be removed from the role of sheriffs and practicing sheriffs. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next question will be question number 60, as asked by the Honorable E.M. Mteto. Honorable Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. The Constitution of South Africa guarantees all citizens a number of fundamental human rights, including the right to have access to courts, which is enshrined in Section 34 of the Constitution. This right is commonly referred to as the right to have access to justice. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development leads a number of ongoing projects to increase access to justice services in previously marginalized communities. This includes court infrastructure. Projects have been seen amongst others, the constructions of the first High Court of Mpumalanga Province. Additional court infrastructure projects have also been prioritized in a number of places, such as Cape Town, Plettenberg Bay in the Western Cape, Boysens in Gauteng, Bichi, Dimbaza in the Eastern Cape, Fraserburg in the Northern Cape, and Welkom in the Free State. The Office of the Family Advocate, which deals with the many legal custody battles disputes and cases of mediation and child abduction that plague South Africa often results in children becoming victims. For decades, the Office of the Family Advocate has worked at creating offices access to justice for vulnerable children who cannot protect themselves free of charge. The department has established an Office of the Family Advocate in every province, as well as satellite offices to enhance access. Access to master's offices services. For estate worth less than 125,000 rands, the families of deceased can now access every magistrate court, of which there are more than 400 countrywide at present, to request assistance with the issuing of letters of authority to wind up the estates. The magistrates courts personnel will then communicate with the master's office personnel and communicate back to the families concerned. This therefore obviates the need for grieving families to travel long distances to any of the 15 master's offices countrywide and can access such services at their nearest magistrates courts. Regional courts have greater jurisdiction in that they can hear civil matters where the claims are below 400,000 rands. They hear more serious criminal matters as well as divorce matters. If a claim is more than 400,000 rands, it can only be heard in the High Court unless the parties consent to the monetary jurisdictions of either the district or the regional court. The Magistrate Court Act 1944 makes provision that the Minister of Justice may, by notice in the Government Gazette, create regional divisions, increase or decrease limits of any regional division, and appoint one or more places within the regional divisions for the holding of a court to hear civil disputes in terms of Section 29 of the Act. In terms of Section 29(1)(b)(1) and 29(1)(b), such civil matters include, among others, claims for the delivery of transfer of property, actions for ejectment, actions arising out of credit agreements, other actions where the claim of value in disputes does not exceed the jurisdiction amount of the regional court, as well as divorces and any matter arising therefore. I have subsequently, with effect from 1 December 2020, established a court for each regional division for the purpose of adjudicating civil disputes contemplated in Section 29(1) and 29(1)(b) of the Act. The places so listed for the holding of court for the adjudication of civil disputes are set out in Government Gazette 43861, copies of which are available upon request. The regional courts are vital to ensure access to justice. Enhancing access to justice means taking the cause closer to the people, which in turn minimize cost and inconvenience when matters are to be heard. By establishing these civil seats, we are making justice more accessible to the people. Legal Aid South Africa Services infrastructure comprises of 64 local offices, 64 satellite offices, 6 provincial offices, and 1 national office across the 9 provinces. In addition, we conclude agency agreement for remote rural areas and cooperation agreements entered into with university law clinics to assist to increase access to justice in both criminal and civil work. We also have advice offices in rural areas where we visit high volume access points, e.g. clinics, SASSA offices, and traditional structures offices to increase our access to justice. Rationalization of the magisterial district project. This project has been implemented in all 9 provinces and entails the reconfiguration and redetermination of courts jurisdiction boundaries in accordance with the Constitution. Prior to 1994, the magisterial districts were determined in a manner that created a separate inferior justice system and courts for people living in the defunct homelands, self-governing states, and black townships. The old era demarcations compelled communities in these areas to travel long distances at huge cost to obtain legal redress and to access justice-related services at courts in the secluded areas. Through the RMD project, communities' new inclusive magisterial districts are created in line with the new municipal boundaries determined by the Municipal Demarcation Board, what you now call the local seating of the municipalities. For example, through the rationalization of magisterial district projects, the people residing in Diepsloot, who were previously compelled to travel to Pretoria Magistrate Court, located in the city of Tshwane, to access justice services, can now access justice services at the Randburg Magistrate Court, located within the city of Johannesburg Metropolitan Municipality. The rationalization of the areas of jurisdictions of the divisions of the High Court. Item 16 of the 6th schedule of the Constitution provide that as soon as practically possible, after the new Constitution has taken effect, all courts, including their structure, composition, functioning, and all relevant legislation must be rationalized to establish a judicial system for the new 1996 Constitution. The legacy of spatial injustice impends access to courts for communities who resides in the areas that form part of the defunct homelands and self-governing territories, as well as remote rural areas. House Chairperson, some of the communities are still forced to travel long distances at huge cost to obtain legal redress as a result of high courts which still exercise jurisdictions over defunct homeland system. For example, the people of Odi and Muretele are still compelled to travel long distances to access high court services in Mahikeng, leaving the closest high court in Pretoria. The people residing in the areas of Cathcart, East London, King Williamstown, Komga, Queenstown, and Stad Heron are still compelled to travel long distances to access high court services at Makanda, leaving the closest high court in Bishop. Similarly, communities residing in areas of Buckley East, Elliot, Indwe, Maclear, and Ug are compelled to travel long distances to access high court services at Makanda, leaving the closest high court in Umtata. In order to address this challenge, I have in June 2021 appointed a commission on the rationalization of areas under the jurisdiction of judicial established chaired by the retired Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Mosanek to address some of the anomalies posed by the pre-1994 spatial injustices.
As you conclude, Honorable Minister, very
Indeed,
important information, but I've allowed you as far as I could.
Thank you. I've concluded, House Chair.
Thank you. It was very important information, members. That's why I allowed Minister to go a little bit over the time. Honorable Mtetwa, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Minister. Honorable Minister, for your response to my question. I know you go to take me to town and with your example. The response indicated, Minister, that there are serious attempts made to address matters of access to justice for all. Minister, what does this minister think about involving of constituency offices that are all over the country in disseminating this information that is very helpful to the general public? I thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Mtetwa. Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Indeed, constituency offices are very important. And we do believe that they can play a role in educating the public, disseminating information, and providing relevant information to the public. For example, with the newly rationalized magisterial courts, that in certain communities, they may still not be aware that they have to travel to another area for a particular service in this particular court. The constituency offices can help to guide and give information to the public. The constituency offices could also enable the members of the public to participate in the rationalization processes of the high courts so that the people in Mabopane don't have to travel to Mahikeng. They make their inputs. And when the final report of Justice Mosanek, as I've said, were able to readjust that jurisdiction so that people are able to just go to the High Court in Pretoria instead of going to Mahikeng. So these are all issues that I do believe that the constituency offices, as part of our constitutional democracy, they've got a very, very important role as they are close to the people and they can play an educational role. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Members, before the Minister or anyone could proceed, I'm really putting a dispute into the Chief Whip. It's unbearable the way it's called in this. I'm really putting a dispute. Sure, really, I thought it would be better by now, but it's really, they can rather switch it off. It was scared. Ah. Thank you. Members, I'm not funny, but I can't take it anymore. Now it's off. So, okay, I withdraw the dispute. Can we now go to the next follow-up? And we will now request the Honorable Mr. Debe of the IFP for his follow-up.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, in terms of a recent written response by the Minister's Office in relation to practical steps taken to improve the capacity of courts to deal with civil matters, it was held that the department will try to ensure that all civil courts are capacitated with human capacity when the need arises, and dedicated civil clerks have already been introduced and implemented in big courts. What mechanisms does the department currently have in place to monitor and evaluate whether the current human capacity at each court is adequate? And how often are these systems monitored to ensure that it responds to the need? Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Hadebe. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. I thought because it's cold, we are going to be realistic. Thank you for the question. The department is implementing a system where the regional heads will be playing a bigger role to monitor all the courts across the country and also ensure the functionality of the regional civil courts and the district civil courts, as you have said, including with the necessary capacity. That will enable people to access justice and to ensure that they are functional and the necessary resources that are needed are put in place to enable the functionality of such courts. And from time to time, we do receive complaints and we respond to such in a manner that help capacitate the courts to function. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much. The next follow-up will be by Honorable Ms. Silindile Lutuli of the EFF.
No. Thanks, House Chair. I'll take the question.
You may continue, Honorable Zandamela.
Thank you, House Chair.
Don't let the minister confuse you, Zandamela. Don't allow the minister to confuse you.
No, I'm not confused. Chair, I'm not confused. Minister, does the measures include setting up satellite offices in rural areas? As we are aware that there are no offices in rural areas. If there is in which rural area is such a provision made available? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Did you get the question, Minister?
No, I could not get it.
I also couldn't hear what it was. Honorable Zandamela, can you just repeat the question, please? Can you just repeat the question?
Okay. Does these measures include setting up satellite offices in rural areas? As we are aware that there are no offices in rural areas. If there is, in which rural area is such a provision made available?
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. No, thank you, Honorable House Chair. As you are aware, we do have satellite and mobile offices in some parts of the country. But we are not expanding on that program because of the costs involved, the logistics and the issues that affect infrastructure. So at this stage, we are only operating the ones that have already been in existence. But to ensure these issues of access, as I've said, we have now rationalized all the courts to be in line with the local seating of the local municipalities and the boundaries. And we do believe that this will have revolutionized the places in which people can be able to access the courts and in their nearest areas. We will continue to assess and evaluate the process and monitor whether indeed it has responded to the challenge of access. And if not, then we'll be able to review. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next question was supposed to be asked by Honorable Ryder, but I have received notice that Honorable W. Ocamp will be the one that will be asking the follow-up.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Minister. Thank you for yourself and the Honorable Chele to be here. I hope I pronounced his surname correctly this time. Honorable Minister, the last time that there was a review of the upper limits that the magistrate courts, regional courts, and small claims courts can deal with in civil matters, as well as the upper limits of Section 18.3 deceased estates, was in 2014. Understanding that reviewing the upper limits will not deal with the case backlog in lower courts, which in itself creates a problem that, or is a problem that requires a different and urgent solution. In the past 8 years, inflation has meant that many cases that could have been dealt with by the lower courts, which are closer to the people, weren't handled by the lower courts. When will the department look at reviewing these upper limits again, Honorable Minister? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ocamp. Honorable Minister.
Thank you. We do review the upper limits from time to time, and we continuously monitor the escalation in inflation and also the various factors that contribute to such. So at this stage, we will again come back to that because there's also a lot of factors that have affected even the upper limits, the COVID-19, the challenges of the access to our facilities and all that, which also necessitate that review. So we continuously do so, and we'll be able to make an announcement at the right time. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next question is question number 71, as asked by the Honorable SF Tutoy of the Freedom Fund Plus. Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. The minister is not constitutionally empowered to pardon or remit sentences of offenders. In terms of our constitution, only the President of the Republic is empowered by Section 84(2)(j) of the Constitution to pardon or reprieve offenders. During the COVID-19 disaster period, a total of 14,005 inmates consisting of 13,218 males and 787 females, low-risk sentence offenders were through the COVID-19 special parole dispensation placed in the community correction system to continue serving their sentences. As a response to the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic declared by the World Health Organization, the Department of Correctional Services developed and implemented a response strategy which entailed prevention, containment, treatment, and recovery. Despite such comprehensive measures put in place, the department was confronted by glaring impossibility of maintaining physical distancing in its facilities due to overcrowding. This necessitated exploration of other avenues to minimize foreseeable threats, as advised by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in line with the UN Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, also known as the Nelson Mandela Rules. In managing and combating the spread of COVID-19 in correctional centers, the department recommended the placement of low-risk sentence offenders on special parole by the President of the Republic. The President, in terms of Section 84(2)(j) of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, read with Section 82(1)(a) of the Correctional Services Act, 1998, authorized the consideration and placement of certain categories of certain offenders on parole. certain low-risk sentence offenders whose minimum detention period were not more than 60 months as and on 27 April 2020 qualified for the special parole dispensation. Only offenders who had undergone relevant rehabilitation programs aimed at addressing their offending behavior qualified for the placement. House Chairperson, it is important to mention that lifers and offenders who are serving sentences for the following offenses were excluded from this dispensation: sexual offenses, murder, attempted murder, sedition, high treason, sabotage, and terrorism, gender-based violence, and child abuse. Offenders declared as dangerous by the courts in terms of Section 286A of the Criminal Procedure Act. Offenders certified as mentally ill and detained in accordance with the Mental Health Care Act of 2002. Offenders with further charges where bail was not fixed or fixed but not paid, escaped or absconded and are still at large on the date of announcement. Offenders out on bail pending appeal on the date of the announcement. Violations under the Domestic Violence Act of 1998, armed robbery with aggravating circumstances and armed robbery. Any other crime directly linked to any of the above mentioned crimes: housebreaking with intent to steal and rape, assault of a child. Any attempt, inciting, soliciting, or conspiracy to commit any of the above crimes, i.e., conspiracy to commit murder. These were the excluded offenses. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Du Toit, you will be allowed to ask the first follow-up question.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, it's common knowledge that the successful conviction rate of criminals is currently very low in the country. Now, in 2020, South Africa had about 155,000 prisoners. And then after the release or the pardon of these prisoners, in May 2021, it was reported that about 129 of these individuals were rearrested as alleged reoffenders after their initial release. Would you agree, Minister, that the scourge of crime in the country could be contributed to a great extent to the fact that these inmates that were not completely rehabilitated were released into civil society? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Du Toit. Honorable Minister, you got the question?
Yes. Indeed, we do have challenges in our rehabilitation programs because of the overcrowding in our facilities. But the department does its best to ensure that inmates undertake skills of rehabilitation that are aimed to change their reoffending behavior. And the majority of them, when released, they comply, they become positive role models in society. And a few of them do commit crimes, and sometimes very heinous crimes that even catches headlines. And this is the number that the department needs to focus on, because the few is still too many if they commit any type of criminal offense. Those that have gone through our rehabilitation programs should be good citizens in the public. But the department has realized that the majority of those that reoffend are those that have been in our facilities on short term, who have not been fully rehabilitated by the rehabilitation program. And it is for that reason that the department is now also going to target those on short offenses, including remand detainees who also come in for a short period of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then reoffend again. So we are also going to target them, and we'll launch a program to respond directly to these remand detainees. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be by the Honorable Mr. M. Nana of the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Good afternoon, honorable members. Minister, the head of the JICS, Judge Edwin Cameron, wrote that it would take you 409 days to clear the backlog of parole applications on your desk if you were to work for 7 days a week on the lifers on the lifers profiles. That is if you work through 11 profiles a day and they are still and they still continue to pile up. How do you envisage working through this backlog? And can you recommit here today that you will continue to consider these applications on a case-to-case basis and not follow a blanket approach just because you're under pressure? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, that is exactly what I'm doing. I am following a case-by-case basis, and I'm considering each case on its merits. And I consider there's applications from time to time. I try to ensure that in my diary, there is time allocated to attend to these applications. And indeed, the judge is correct. The files are a lot. They trickle in every now and then, every month after the sitting of the NCCS. They add into the huge pile of files that I have to consider. And indeed, I consider them on a case-by-case basis in line with the Correctional Services Act. Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be by the Honorable Ms. S. Lee of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Chairperson, are there any offenders who were released and have been arrested again or who have violated parole conditions? Which measures were taken to ensure proper rehabilitation is rendered in correctional services and that community integration is conducted in a way that offenders do not commit the same or similar offenses upon release?
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, as I've said earlier, some of those released did re-offend. And as you are aware, those that were released in line with this special dispensation were released during the COVID-19 difficult period in terms of consultation and engagement. So most of the consultations were done telephonically with the victims, but the department endeavored to engage all the victims, their families, in terms of the victim-offender dialogue to ensure that they are aware and also that they participate in this process of the parole process. The other leg that the department usually use is the VOD with the public in community meetings where the community at large also participate. But unfortunately, during this period of COVID, it was very difficult to convene such meetings. As you are aware, public gatherings were prohibited. So the department had to innovate and engage directly with the victims and some of the role players in the space. It did yield fruits, but the real challenge also comes when the inmates get released into society, where communities sometimes reject them because of the offenses that they have committed. And this kind of stigma affect the inmates in a manner that sometimes they request to be brought back to our facilities, or they end up re-offending in some of the situations because they either can't participate in economic activities or even in the social life of their communities. But our programs of rehabilitations are aimed to address exactly that, so that the inmates are able to integrate in society, to play a meaningful role, either economically or socially. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last follow-up on this question is by the Honorable Mr. Mohammed Dango of the African National Congress.
Thank you very much, Minister. By and large, you've answered my questions. However, for the sake of emphasis, Minister, Has any persons who were in the community correction systems that were sentenced for violent crimes, have they recommitted crimes after they were released? Thank you very much.
She said for the matter of emphasis, because you've been responding to that one.
Yeah, yes, indeed, as I've said earlier on, in terms of this special dispensation, those that were convicted of violent crime were not released. But as I've said, those that serve these short sentences or remand detainees, they are also the most people who we have seen in terms of our assessments of states who recommit crime. And most of the crimes that they commit are alleged committed for reoffending for economic nature. Gang activities within communities may also have contributed to reoffending. Some crimes were committed under the influence of drugs, drug use, or alcohol. Some reoffenders were given second chance to continue with the supervisions. Some reoffenders also participate in some gang-related activities, as I've said, including drugs and other behaviors that are not in line with societal norms and communities. But we continue to put them in programs as they come back in our facilities of rehabilitation that are aimed to change their reoffending behavior. And as I've said earlier on, this continues to be work in progress. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. That have dealt with question 71. Before I continue, let me I've been reliably informed that we've got a visitor in the person of Mayor Swart of P2 Municipality. Welcome, Councillor Swart. He is in the gallery, but I don't want you to look up because I don't want people to have a pain in the neck. So we will now continue, and we come to question number 63, as asked by Honorable G. Mikelaka.
I won't have the challenge of a pain in the neck, Honorable House Chair, because I'm tall.
You're tall, yes, you are, at least you've got that advantage.
In terms of the approved annual performance plan for the 2022-23 financial year for the Masters branch, the clearing of the backlog dating back 28 February 2022 and older is included in indicator 5.9 as one of the turnaround strategies to be implemented. During Q1, the Master's Office determined their backlog and created a baseline list of Masters outstanding. During Q2 and 3, the Master's Office will attend to these matters by working overtime in order to reach out our indicated target of 100% of the determined backlog cleared by 31 December 2022. It will, however, be noted that this target can only be achieved in an enabling and stable work environment. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mikelakis, the first follow-up.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. You know what they say, you either have a pain in the neck or you are one. So it's one of the two. I'd rather have one in my neck.
I was very worried. The fact that you have said nothing and since you came here.
No, I'd never disappoint, Deputy Chair, don't worry. There's a backlog, Honourable Minister, of 12,000 pieces of post that still need to be processed according to one of your written replies. And contracts for copiers were stalled for 6 months after lockdown, also according to your reply. We cannot forever blame COVID and the hacking of the Master's Office IT system. The system deficiencies at the Master's Office have also been highlighted as one of the contributory factors to the threat of grey listing by the FATF. What is your message, Minister, to those families who could not access funds due to frozen assets and estates that can't be finalized due to the mess at the Master's Office created by the Master's Office and your department. When will these people who currently can't access those much needed funds, when will they access those funds to pay their bills? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's not correct that this was created by the Master's Office. As you have said, this backlog comes with the COVID-19 challenges, including the hacking of the system. The Master's Office is working very hard to respond to this challenge and to deal with the backlog. And they have committed that they are attending to all these matters through their systems that are now back online, which are now able to function and are now responsive to the issues. And we want to send a message to the families and those that are participating in the master's processes that indeed those challenges are being attended to, including the organized profession that is participating in the space. With regards to the gray listing, we are in the process of submitting a bill to respond to the Trust Control Property Act that has been flagged as the main reason that needs responding to, and that is being attended to. Soon it will go through the processes of Parliament, and we are convinced that we will be able to respond to that process of FATF in terms of the gray listing. But we are also dealing with other challenges related to that in terms of mutual legal assistance, extradition requests, and so forth, that are responding to our compliance with those international regulations. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be by Mr. N.M. Radebe of the Inkatha Freedom Party. And before that, Chief Whip, we are still in Antarctica, really. Honorable Hadebe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, what steps have been taken by your office to discuss the urgent service delivery issues at each master's office in the country in light of the extensive backlog? Have there been meetings with the Chief Master at each office? Furthermore, in terms of a media report of earlier this year, it was held that overtime pay has been approved for all offices of the Master's Office until December 2021 in a bid to address the backlog. Can the Minister confirm that such overtime pay has been paid out? Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
The question.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. There has been meetings with the Chief Master, including the Deputy Minister who has been visiting some of the Master's offices, sometimes visiting them unannounced, to check whether some of the resolutions of the meetings are being carried through by the Master's offices across the country. And the challenges remain, but we continue to monitor and wanting to see improvement, which is we are beginning to see it, but not in a pace that is satisfactory. And we have registered that with the Chief Master. And we have encouraged that employees should indeed work overtime to address some of these challenges and the backlogs, which there has been some engagements, but I'm not aware that there has been that agreement in terms of the overtime period up until December 2022. I can just confirm it with the Chief Master. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be by Ms. Honorable Ms. Barbara Martha Bartlett of the ANC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson. Honorable Minister, thank you for the response. But the Master's Office it's playing a very important role It assists us a lot. But I just want to find out, is there any strategy in place to make sure that there will be no backlogs in the future? Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thanks, Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. Indeed, if the master will be able to clear the backlog by December 2022, we will be able to ensure that we do not go back to this life of a backlog because of the technology that the master's office has now employed, which will enable efficiency, which will enable expeditious processing of some of the filed requests, and also the shift lines and the improving engagement with labor in the space. We do believe that we'll be able to find a way that we do not again clock this huge backlog that we have carried from the COVID-19 period. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next question will be by Honorable Moletsane of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Minister, does the Master's Office have adequate staff to do the work that is required to eradicate backlogs? And are they skilled enough to do the work? If so, please provide the details. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, we believe that they do have the staff required to handle the work. Hence, the discussion, as I said earlier on, was about maybe them looking at working overtime, which was still a discussion with the master to deal with most of these backlogs. Yes, they do have the skill. Most of them are qualified law graduates who have been trained in the master's office and who have also been trained by the Justice College. They have the requisite skills, and most of the experienced practitioners out there were once employees of the master's office. Having gone through that process, they do have the requisite qualification. What we need now is to ensure the functionality of the online system, the digital systems, the modernization efforts to enable the functionality of the master's office properly. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Minister. I can see you are not well, but they assure me this system is totally off, but it's still so cold.
Yeah,
so I'm sorry for that because I can see you are not too well. So, but also when you speak of the masters, we are so interested because really it is many of us that are touched by issues of the master. So now we go to question number 61, asked by the Honorable B.N. Ndongeni. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chairperson. We want to indicate that the mandate of victim empowerment is with the Department of Social Development. However, as part of social reintegration efforts, DCS contributes to the rehabilitation and preparation for offenders back into society through the implementing programs which empower victims of crime and the broader community. Our offenders and parolees are involved in community projects under the community corrections, where they, amongst others, build houses for the community members, renovate schools, school furniture, and various other community projects which directly or indirectly benefit victims of crime and indigent families. The Department of Correctional Services is responsible for the creation of an atmosphere conducive for restoring the relationships between offenders, victims, families, and communities through the Restorative Justice Program. Hence, the victim-centric approach is adopted. Restorative Justice Program is being implemented whereby victims are afforded an opportunity to participate in parole placement considerations, victim-offender dialogue, and victim-offender mediation. During the preparation of victims for participation in VOD sessions, the needs of the victims are identified and they are being referred to the relevant stakeholders for further assistance. We must also note the alignment of self-sufficiency strategic model and rehabilitation programs. Therefore, inmates assigned to DCS workplaces and offender training facilities are prioritized for accredited skills training interventions. For instance, inmates assigned to farms are trained in vegetable production, meat cutting, dairy production, just to name a few. Inmates assigned to maintenance divisions are identified for building and plastering as well as painting. Inmates in production workshops are identified for garment making, shoemaking, welding, and carpentry. DCS will start with the introduction of 3 learnerships programs such as welding, electrical, hairdressing in September 2022 as part of the implementation of the self-sufficiency and sustainability program, also aimed to rehabilitate the inmates and offenders. Due to the vegetable gardening skills acquired whilst incarcerated, our parolees and probationers have established vegetable gardens in some of the schools and communities where they assist in maintaining those vegetable gardens, and victim benefits directly or indirectly from this vegetable produce. As indicated during our budget 2022-2023, we indicated that 54.14 million is allocated for the implementation of the self-sufficiency and sustainability framework. Self-sufficiency is one of the key strategic deliverables in the strategic plan of the Department of Correctional Services. A total of 45 identified victims have benefited from the socio-economic support facilitated by the department for the first quarter of 2022-2023 financial year. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Dongeni, you will be the first one to ask the follow-up.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for the comprehensive response to my question. Honorable Minister, self-sufficient is very important in the integration of former offenders and parolees. My question is there any intention to increase the number intentionally earmarked for offenders? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Dongeni. Minister.
Thank you. Indeed, we continue to increase the number of the offenders participating in our programs for skills development. We're also working with stakeholders to consider parolees that have acquired skills in our programs. We're encouraging the private sector to consider them for employment opportunity programs. However, we encourage our parolees to consider entrepreneurship, and they become employees by also sharing their skills they have acquired. For example, some of our parolees, they've been able to start their own bakeries. They bake. For example, Mr. Khalane Tobejane from Limpopo, he acquired baking skills during incarceration at the Central Correctional Center under Hoshimampuri 2 in Pretoria. Upon his release, he managed to establish a bakery business. He has employed 2 community members who are assisting him in baking bread and scones. So we believe that with that kind of a skill and him now operating his businesses, the chances of him reoffending are almost 0. So we're looking forward to increase this number of people who benefit in this way, because as and when they become engaged and involved in activities, it reduces the opportunities for reoffending. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be by Honorable Mr. T. Apleni of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister, are there any records of inmates who through the self-sufficient strategic model have acquired skills, managed to establish their own businesses or got employed? If yes, is the government supporting them to establish their businesses? And for those who are seeking employment, do their criminal records not affect their search for work? If so, which measures of intervention have been put in place to assist them in securing employment? Thank you very much, Minister.
Minister.
Yes, indeed, there is records of the inmates who have acquired the skills, and there is also a record of those that have become successful outside the correctional centers, like the name I've mentioned earlier. And also the second one that comes to mind is Mr. Ernst Mackay. He obtained an agricultural skills during incarceration at Polokwane Correctional Center. He owns a successful farm. He has since employed 2 community members who assist him in running the business by plowing and selling vegetables to the community at large. And we have got a lot of them who are doing this great work. Women who are also, some of them running hairdressing salons, men, barber shops, a lot of them across the country. Indeed, they do face challenges of being employed because there is a stigma and a misconception in society that once you have got a criminal record, you must never be employed. It's a challenge we are confronting as Correctional Services, and also the Department of Justice is also confronting on the perceptions, particularly in the private sector. We do understand when they don't get employed, particularly on matters that relates to sexual offenses and so forth, particularly if they've been entered into the register. But the message must go out there that having a criminal record does not mean that you cannot be legally employed anywhere. They can be employed, they can participate meaningfully in the economy, particularly if they have acquired the skill. And we are also calling for society to welcome them, particularly those that have proven and shown that they want to now be positive role models in the economy and also to play a life in the positive contribution to their societies and their communities. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up will be the Honorable SF Du Toit of the Freedom Front Plus.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Honorable Minister, the shortage of prison wardens and overcrowding in prisons pose its own problems with regards to implementing self-sufficiency strategic models. As you're aware, most of the prisons, especially in rural areas, does have sufficient land available and even neglected gardens that are not utilized or have not been utilized for years. When and why, Minister, were self-sufficiency models at prisons not monitored since 1996 to ensure that prisons are self-sufficient and not a burden to taxpayers and whom it is to be held accountable for this? Thank you, Minister.
Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you. I can confirm that all those land that we have seen lying fallow, we are now plowing. You can go anywhere now in the country. It's busy. There is activity. There is no longer any inmate who is not doing anything now. They are at work. You can go as members. I hope as you visit these prisons, you will be able to see on your own. I can say now, from this financial year, we will no longer be outsourcing eggs. And there is another product, if I'm not mistaken, it's milk, that we will also no longer be outsourcing. So already we're beginning to build that capacity. And you can see and you can touch it. And that's why I'm encouraging honorable members as you move around the provinces to visit these prisons and see for yourself that indeed the self-sustainability model is working. And we are also very clear that as we outsource, we will only outsource what we cannot do in our facilities. And we are very clear that we are also not going to be price takers because we now know what costs us to produce a loaf of bread. We are also bringing back a lot of bakeries in KwaZulu-Natal. We are putting a bakery that will function in those areas and in many areas where we do not have them. So Correctional Services is and inmates are now back at work. Basebenza, and they are going to eat what they work for. I can assure the honorable members that our intention is that by the time we finish this term, at least we must be back at almost 50% of this process of self-sustainability. And what I'm saying is not some movie or something. you can see it because I know most of you visit, do a lot of constituency work. So when you have time, just go in one of the prisons next to where you stay. You will see what I'm saying in real action. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. There is one last follow-up, and that is Honorable Ms. H.S. Bosov. I want to conclude calling you, but I can see the way you are called, you are already standing.
Like you, I can't speak because I've been told I look like Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. Honourable Minister, we'll have a little giggle about that, about my nose and the hairdressing saloons, because there is a difference between saloon and salon, but that is a discussion for a later stage. Minister, you yourself indicated that the excess crops grown will be donated to needy families. We have, however, not experienced or seen this. Be that as it may, could you indicate to us what portion roughly of the money that the department claims to have saved has been reallocated to these rehabilitation programs? And your department has also claimed to have saved 94 million in the 2020-2021 financial year. Yet we see little increase in rehabilitation spending. Minister, you have to agree, what is more important than rehabilitation? Dankie, achtbare ondervoorzitter.
Thank you, Honorable Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. During when there was a disaster in KZN, we delivered food parcels from this self-sufficiency program. Honorable member says she has not seen. They made a meaningful contribution in the church by a huge bulk, which they could use for a very long time. That came from the inmates. In Oudtshoorn, they have adopted a school which they help with various vegetable gardens. In Limpopo, in the far north of Vembe area, there's also a lot of schools. And you find these schools across the country where the inmates have played a role, and also the parolees, to maintain vegetable gardens. In Naisna, there is a school. So across the country, you can see and touch what they have done. So whoever does not see it, deliberately shut his or her eyes not to see what is in front of them. But it is happening. And I just hope that you can just give yourself time and go and see it, so that you don't rely only on the reports, but you see it for yourself. And with regards to the money that is being saved through this self-sufficiency program, we are reinvesting it to buy the machines that are needed. Correctional Services in the past used to produce its own uniform for the inmates and for the wardens, the prison officials. But the machines were of 1983, outdated. They could no longer perform at the maximum function. We have now, through that money, bought the new machines in the Witbank Correctional Facility, which is now going to produce the uniform for the inmates and also for the wardens. And we do believe that with time, we will no longer have a shortage of uniform for both of them. And we have also appealed to organized labor that because this skill was no longer there, we are reintroducing it into the centers. They must accept that sometimes they will receive skewed type of uniform. Like the Chinese struggled at the beginning, but with time, they will perfect this art. And in the next year or two, we believe that the uniform will be of good quality. And the organized labor has agreed to sacrifice and be used as a guinea pig during this this period, but we believe that we'll be able to perfect it with time. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Members, we have now come to the end of the questions to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. I would like to thank the Honorable Minister for availing himself to answer questions. And Honorable Minister, I am the Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP.
Thank you.
Just for you to remind you of that. Members, I think we can just take a leg stretch, just stand up, because really I think we are stiff because of this cold.
Honorable Deputy Chair, can I be allowed to leave to take some medication? I'm struggling. Yeah, thank you.
We will expect the minister because we can.
Because it's not even.
Honorable members, thank you. We will now hand over to the Honorable Nyambi. He's on the virtual platform. He will continue with the with the questions to the Minister of Police. And I will then request that Honorable Moimang must just symbolically occupy the chair in front. Please, Honorable Nyambi, are you there?
Yes, the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces.
You may continue then. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chairperson Lucas. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the Minister of Police, Honorable Cele, as is going to the podium in the NCOP so that it can be a seamless exercise for him also to deal with the questions.
Honorable Chair, before the Minister starts speaking, can you ensure that they're open barneys, please?
The what? Honorable Minister, we are going to start with the first question, numbered 56, asked by Honorable Sheikh. Honorable Minister of Police, Honorable Cele.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. Working conditions here are quite hostile, but we'll soldier on. In the wake of the rape of 8 women who were part of a crew shooting at a music video by men believed to be Zamazamas, the Minister of Police held a crime combating Imbizo in Kagiso in July 2022. During the Imbizo, residents of the West Rand accused the local South African Police Service of corruption in terms of colluding with the Zamazamas. However, to date, no residents or community members of the West Rand has come forward to lodge a formal complaint against any member of Saps with regard to corruption in relation to collusion with Zamazamas. When a member of the community lodges a formal complaint with regard to corruption involving members of the Saps, the matter will be investigated. The Saps Anti-Corruption Unit has been tasked to investigate the alleged collusion of Saps members with Zamazamas. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first follow-up is from Honorable Sheikh. Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. And thank you, Honorable Minister, for your response to my question. It is encouraging to note that the Anti-Corruption Unit is investigating the allegations, even though there's been no formal complaint. Minister, will you be able to assure the House that there will be serious steps taken if the unit has established that there are police officers who have a case to answer? Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh. Honorable Minister.
Thanks, Honorable House Chair. Thanks, Honorable Sheikh. Yes, indeed. As we investigate and the police find that there is prima facie, they will
continue to take the matters forward in two ways. One is to refer the thing to the NPA if it needs to be, but also if there are other criminal activities, it will be taken to other areas of investigations like IPIT to pursue, to find out if there are no members of Saps that have committed the criminal activities. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The second follow-up question is from Honourable Smith. Honourable Smith.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. Honourable House Chairperson, my question is to the Minister Chele. In the Free State goldfields, Zamazamas are charged for trespassing instead of illegal mining, and they receive police protection in this way. I cannot be concise that these accusations are hollow if it comes from residents of two different parts of the country. Will the minister understand to do a similar investigation into collaboration between the SAPS and Zamazamas in the gold fields? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Smith. Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister Taylor will answer now. We believe that the members that are here can also enlighten the members of the community that should they see things that they suspect are criminal activities, go to the nearest police station to open the cases. And it's very difficult for the police to investigate cases that are not opened. So if it is opened, then it will be followed, and they can work with those communities so that if they don't get any joy, they can elevate their matters at the provincial level, either to the MEC, other provincial commission, including the National Commissioner and the Minister himself here. So that's what we'll encourage, that they open the cases so that there can be an investigation specifically on these matters. The Minister thanks you.
Thank you, Minister Kele. The third follow-up question is from Honorable Matevula. Honorable Matevula.
Nakensa Musamashtul. Minister, before Ningenaka initial question, and akatiko bakadzumeni vanhu mekamwe sente namuntlha emhakamukoho kwala ka sitting ya namuntlha ni ta vheni kuma opportunity ya ku mbutisa question mayelana na police station ya ka Dzumeri police station yi operate 24 hours hi maphorisa mambirhi na vhene yin'we. So loko va ya va attenda complaints va pfala police station, loko vanhu va ya va kuma ku police station yi pfariwile, and then va fane va yimela loko ku ri na ti change ya ti shift va fane va yimela maphorisa lama sukaka Giyani.
Honorable Matevula, your question must be linked to your original question. If you have got another one, you can deal with it in a different manner. Ask your follow-up question.
I understand the chair. That's why I said that to the minister, can I please also pose this question, because I take this opportunity because the community is watching today. Chair, through you, Chair.
That's your follow-up question.
Through you, Chair. Can I finish and then ask the initial question?
Yeah, you can finish. Finish your second follow-up question.
Okay. So, Minister, loku vanchicha ti shift, vene ifane isuka 38 kilos to Dzumeri police station. Se va pfala station, loko vanhu va yisa ti complaint, va kuma ku pfariwile. Vanhu va khomiwa nkuzi during that time ya ti shift, and vanhu va dlayiwa during that time ya ti shift. Se a hi kombela assistant ya n'wina loko mi swi kota mi endla oversight mi ya vona that area hikuva yi ri njhani va community yi kota ku pfuneka. So I'm going to the initial question now. Yeah, there's Zamazamas. Does the minister agree that the police—
Point of order, House Chair. Point of order. Yeah, it is incorrect for a member to do as they wish here. There is questions that are placed before the ministers, and we should be focused in raising questions as the order paper dictates. If members do have other issues, you have correctly pointed it out, House Chair, that they can do so in a written way and ministers do respond to these situations. So let's be focused in how we deal with questions in the House. Thanks.
No, I'm sustaining the point of order, but I will allow her to deal with the follow-up question, and then I'll leave it to the minister whether it's interested in commenting in the first one, because it's not linked to the original question. We are left with 50 seconds, Honorable Matebula.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, your department agrees that the police lack capacity to fight the Zamazama or any sort of criminal element in this country, as the police only responds to issues when they are in a spotlight or in front of local newspapers, as the case with the Zamazamas? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thanks, Chairperson. I would have loved to know the question on the first question. Which police station is that?
It's Zumeri. Zumeri Police Station, Minister.
No, I don't have an answer per se, but after this, I will pursue it with the National Command and Provincial Commissioner on the matters you have raised, because they're quite serious matters. So it would be good that the police respond to that one. The second one, that police have no capacity of dealing with Zamazamas. I'm not very sure. Otherwise, we would not have had more than 2,000 Zamazamas that are arrested as we speak. And those 2,000 Zamazamas don't go in prison on Doi Doi. Somebody send them there. Somebody arrest them and send them there. By the way, the question of Zamazamas, the police created a special team on July 2019 that began to deal with the situation of Zamazamas, especially at Velcom area, because Zamazamas went underground, not just getting the either gold or diamond, but they began to divert water and electricity that was meant for the communities there. So the police had to act. We created this special team that has been operating in Free State ever since. But there are other teams already that have been created. But it's much broader than we think. There are 6,000 shafts that are underground there, that Zamazamas are all over, starting from the east to the west of Gauteng. Especially, we've got all former Transvaal provinces giving trouble, including Free State and Northern Cape. But together with the Department of Minerals, we're trying to work to reverse those issues. 6,000 of these open shafts are quite many for the police to be able to deal with them simultaneously. Some of these Zamazamas, by the way, they walk from east, from Springs to west, to Krugersdorp, walking underground. And you do have sometimes the operations that pursue them down there, find sometimes of them, sometimes don't. But I think the police are creating the capacity, if it is not yet there, to respond on those matters. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, the next follow-up question is from Honorable Hadebe. Honorable Hadebe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, accusations of collusions are very serious, as they have the potential to create distrust between citizens and the police. Considering the nature of these collusions accusations, how often are operational audits performed on the pocketbooks of officers at the police precinct? And what are the actions taken against those in contravention of those standard operations? Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Pungan. Honorable Minister.
Well, on the question raised specifically, we did answer that we are investigating on that. But There are other allegations that have been made by communities indeed. And as one says, those have been investigated by the anti-corruption unit within the South African Police and other investigative units like IPIT. And indeed, there are members of the South African Police that have been dismissed either internal processes or have been charged by the Court of Laws, and some of them found guilty and given the relevant kind of outcomes by the Court of Laws. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question 6.6 asked by Honourable Mikalakis. Honourable Minister.
No, it is not appropriate for any police officer to lash out at an innocent citizen in public or private. The conduct of members of the South African Police Service is strictly governed by legislation, as well as by specific internal directives, policies, and national instructions. All SAPS members are required to sign the Code of Conduct of the SAPS, which includes an undertaking that members will act impartially, courteously, honestly, respectfully, transparently, and in an accountable manner, and exercise the powers conferred upon them is a responsible and controlled manner. Where a member is alleged to have acted in an improper manner, an investigation will be conducted, which may result in the member being charged with misconduct in terms of the South African Police Service Discipline Regulation 2016 and or criminal charges against each individual. The contravention of the prescribed code of conduct is regarded as misconduct in terms of the regulation of South African police, and it has serious consequences. The circumstances of each individual incident must be investigated and considered to determine whether any action should be taken against the member involved, and if so, what action ought to be taken. The sanction that is applied in respect of the member will be informed by the aforementioned investigation. Allegation of a criminal conduct by SAPS members may also be referred to the IPIT for investigation in terms of their statutory mandate. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. First follow-up is from Honourable Mikalakis. Honourable Mikalakis.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. Minister, you are supposed to set the example. Why did you find it appropriate then to do this, exactly this, in such an undignified manner when interacting with Mr. Ian Cameron? According to what you just said now, in other words, the police officers should not follow your terrible example. And if you were a police officer, action should have been taken against you by now. Do you realize that you've lost the little trust and credibility among South Africans that you had left after the riots and the lockdown madness of last year and 2020 after this incident? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Mr. Ian Cameron is not just an ordinary member of the public. In 2018, he's a campaigner. In 2018, he went to Australia, where he was campaigning against South Africa and giving the wrong information that 1,000 farmers are killed in South Africa every year. He was responsible for the Afro Forum safety desk. So he's a campaigner and some form of a politician. So that's how it acted, not like ordinary member of the, I'm giving the answer here. But besides, there was no problem listening to Mr. Cameron. What was the problem? He said and he got all his opportunity to say whatever I wanted to say to the minister. And the minister sat there and listened to him for quite a long time. The problem when there was a response, he could not take the response, he stood up, banged the table and all that, could not listen. And that's why it disrupted the meeting. That's why I was taken out of the meeting, because he could not have a big stomach and to take what was said when he said everything to other people. As for the credibility lost to South Africans, I'm not very sure where you go around with me and you listen people what they say. For that, I'll leave it to the South Africans, because surely you are not mandated by South Africans to represent them, whether there's still some form of it or not. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The second follow-up question is from Honourable Mthethwa. Honourable Mthethwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair, for the opportunity. And thanks to the Minister for the detailed response, and especially the latter part that he has given us, because we're also confused. And to clarify that, I think is good also for the public. Minister, mine is about the signing of the conduct of the SAPS. Is there any training, Minister, that is given to this police to try and curb this behavior? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Indeed, after the training, basic training that takes place as we speak at the colleges, police are trained on other documents that are life of South Africa, the Constitution, the human rights documents, the code of conduct. But besides, they do have an ongoing training on other matters. One document that they would have been trained to it is a document called Diversity and Dignity, in order to understand the other extra kind of life orientations. For instance, that document will train them on things like LGBTIQ+, and how to treat people like the sex workers and other people. And indeed, it's ongoing, and there is training on that and other documents. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from Honourable Du Toit. Honourable Du Toit.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Minister Cele, it is a fact that thousands of farmers have been killed in South Africa since 1994. And this is a crime that is still taking place in the country as we speak. I want to know, is it a crime to bring this fact under the attention of the international arena? Because from your answer, Minister, one could say that the moment when someone advocates for the safety of individuals, that person could not be seen as a normal citizen anymore. That is what you basically implied with your answer. But Minister, I want to know, as you mentioned, police officials must adhere to the code of conduct, the code of ethics, and the Batho-Pele principles. Do you think your actions, your attitude, and your utterances during public meetings is in line with the Saps code of conduct? And if not, what remedial steps will be taken in this regard, Minister? Do you value the lives of ordinary South Africans enough to allow someone to advocate for the life and the safety of individuals? Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Toit. Honourable Minister.
Well, thanks, Chair. I didn't hear the first part of lecture, but the second of the members of the South African police taken to and following the code of conduct and having structures to take them if they don't follow that. That is the same with the members of executive, that you take them to the code and the ethics of the members of the executive, of which one political party has done. that has taken the minister to that body. Maybe it's a time that we wait the outcome of that body, and then you can't do both. Take the minister there, and then before you get the results, and then you come back to preempt what the results that would be. So maybe let's work because let's wait because that has been done already. What are the outcomes of that process? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The fourth follow-up question is from Honourable Moletsane. Honourable Moletsane.
Thank you, House Chair. Is the minister not of a view that such outbursts from any police officer or minister on a public platform demonstrate an ethical behavior which warrant an action? If not, why? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Well, yes, Chair, I have answered that actions are taken for members of the South African Police, and then there are ways and paths that if there is suspicion that the executive member has not behaved properly, there are also processes that should be taken and wait for those processes for the outcome. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question number 57, asked by Honourable Bartlett. Honourable Minister.
The South African Police Service Education Trust is currently not fully functional. Since the resignation of the subset board members, the outstanding fees for 2020 and 2021 could not be paid. The board is the only structure authorized to approve the processing of payment. Hence, the outstanding payment could not be processed. The South African Police Service is currently in the process of resuscitating both the suspect board and the executive committee. In order to activate the processing of the payment in the interim, non-financial support is still being provided to the affected children. 7 learners who are subset beneficiaries have been assisted financially with the help of Tracker, who paid the tuition fees directly to the higher institution where they are currently studying. That will be the reply for now, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. First follow-up from Honourable Bartlett. Honourable Bartlett.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Minister, thanks for the response to the question. Minister, it's obvious that the non-function of subsets is having a negative impact on the education of the children, especially of police officers who died on duty. When is the department intending to finally set up the subset board in the executive committee, and what assistance the department currently giving to qualifying children who cannot pay for their studies? I thank Honourable Minister. Thanks, Honourable.
Thank you, Honourable Bartlett. Honourable Minister.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, indeed, it's a painful take that such thing can happen. We are trying to work on, especially on the board. At one time, the board had very eminent South Africans. It was chaired by Father Smangaliso Mkhatshwa, and the Judge Yvonne was part of it. Yvonne Chaka was part of it. Very eminent South Africans that were part of this board. Unfortunately, there is issue that, or allegation that they were not treated very well by the predecessors of some national commissioners, so they had to withdraw. But at the present moment, we are working hard. We have approached again other eminent South Africans to be part of that board, to be able to allow this good body to function. But when it comes to executives, that is made by the South African Police Service members. We expect it that come September, they'll be able to be inaugurated and be able to continue with their work. But fortunately, there are quite several people that are coming forward because they want to be part of this good work. even outside the board, because the money cannot be utilized if it is not sanctioned by the board. So they will come and they are requested, some of them, to deal directly with the institutions of the higher learning, though we concede that there are problems. Hence, we are trying to fast track the creation of the board so that those students and those children that they lost their parents, especially on the line of duty, they are assisted going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second follow-up question is from Honorable Pungal. Honorable Hatebe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, I would like to know how long is the period that the trust support the children of the deceased officers, and how is this period determined? Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Pungane. Honorable Minister.
We believe that it should not be a very long time, Honorable Member. As we say that the executive has been put in place, but the board is people, they volunteer there, but you also try the best that to get South Africans of eminence, South Africans that will be trusted by South Africa, the rest of South Africans, because they deal with quite a sizable amount of finances there. So it's good if you get the people that will be trusted. We hope that it won't be long before we create both the board and the executive, but the executive we're about to, and we hope it will be a short time so that this good work that is done with the offense of the members of the South African police that are on duty, their life continues, especially in terms of achieving education. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third follow-up question is from Honorable Zandamela. Honorable Zandamela.
Thanks, House Chair. Minister, the funding provided, is it sufficient to meet the needs of the children until postgraduate? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Zandabela. Honorable Minister.
If you could repeat the question, Chair, I don't think I got it.
Is the fund more than enough to meet the needs of the kids? The fund provided, is it more than enough to meet the needs of the kids?
No, definitely the funds at the present moment, funds are not enough because the funds should be fundraised from the different bodies, and for those funds to be well kept and to be functional, the board should be functional. But for now, funds are not enough. That's why the requests are made from the outside bodies to assist here and there. But to say we're just rolling with enough funds, it could not be said at the present moment. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The fourth follow-up question is from Honorable Christian. Honorable Christian.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, in May this year, it was revealed that almost 500 children of slain cops have not received bursary money from the SAPS. Now, there is clearly financial maladministration, since allocations could not have been made to beneficiaries if there was not money to do so in the first place. Now, between the allocation and the payment, it seems the money has disappeared. Has an investigation been lodged into the financial affairs of the trust? If not, why not? And if so, by when can we expect a report, Minister? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christian. Honorable Minister.
Well, Chairperson, the Deputy National Commissioner was dealing with the matter, General Vuma, was looking at the question of non-availability of funds or the suspicions that there was embezzlement of funds, but one has not received the full report coming from there. Again, the question of not having the board, as we're working hard that the board should come to life, is having the negative impact, because the companies, quite several of these companies, by the way, this money is raised from the ordinary corporates in South Africa who wish to put and assist and help the police officers. So they are very jittery to come and put the money where there is no board, which one will agree with them. That the board, which we hope that in a very near future will be there, will be able to go back to these companies, or the board itself go back to these companies to say he will put some monies. But the investigation surely will have to find out what was the outcome, and whoever has committed an embezzlement of the funds will have to pay the consequences of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, we now come to question 4646, asked by Honorable Zandamela. Honorable Minister.
The South African Police Service did not wait for an incident such as the rape of 8 women for the police to respond. During 2019, an increase in the illicit mining activities was experienced in Northwest, Limpopo, Gauteng, Free State, Mpumalanga, and in the Northern Cape provinces. A multidisciplinary approach to the establishing of the mining industry was adopted by the establishing integrated task teams. In 2020 and 2021, illicit mining incidents, including damage to infrastructure, continued to show an increase. Various subcommittees were established at the national level to focus on illicit mining, including stabilization and normalization, integrated resources, training and development, integrated work study investigations, and legislative review subcommittee was formed. Since July 2021, special stabilization operations were initiated and implemented in the affected provinces. The Saps have now established economic and infrastructure task teams that address illicit mining and other related crimes, including damage to critical infrastructure, in 18 prioritized district municipalities. The Saps has also mobilized national specialized policing capabilities to the Free State, Northwest, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga provinces. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. First follow-up question is from Honorable Zandamela. Honorable Zandamela.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister, the police were again found sleeping on the job by failing to rid the community from terror carried by Zamazamas in Kruger. Why did the minister not respond to the complaint as it was logged by the residents before it happened? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Zandamela. Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, as it has been said before, indeed, there were issues raised by the residents, especially of Kagiso, or West Rand, let me say, and East Rand. And there have been operations, as I've said, even before what happened in Krugersdorp and Kagiso. And the places like Randfontein and Mhlakeng, there were operations before this incident. Maybe indeed, specifically in Kagiso, there have not been a response before this happened. But many people have been arrested even before this day happened in Krugersdorp. Chairperson, as I've explained again, there were operations, it might not be in Kagiso per se, but there were operations, as I've said, in Free State, but also in Northwest. I'm sure many of the members did see one of the top operations run by the South African police, especially that elite unit called the Special Task Force, where they went to shut down the mine that was illegally operating with all the big machines. There we even arrested what would be termed as the owners of those mining, the luxury cars, and they were trying to run there. The police, together with the private companies, they work together in a very successful operations. Specifically, Kagiso, yes, but broadly, police have been really acting on this matter of the illicit mining. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The second follow-up question is from Honourable Labuskaghni. Honourable Labuskaghni.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. I want to know if the minister is still of the opinion that the woman that were raped once is lucky. And I would like to know if you are going to make a public apology to all women that has been raped and sexually assaulted in this country for the ill-informed, idiotic and hypocritical statements that you made. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Well, I think it's the 7th time I'm trying to respond to this one. I'll respond again. No, I'm not going to apologize for the things that I did not know. Let me repeat what I said on that particular day. Let me repeat what I said. I had an interview after I've gone to Krugersdorp and after I've seen women that were abused. There were 8 of them. I met 6 of them. Those women, young and quite traumatized. So I went to visit them together with their parents. Then I was told that some were raped by 10 men, 1 by 8, by 6, by 4. And we're told that this young one was raped by 1 woman, by 1 man. It is on that score that women were raped by 10 men. This young woman was lucky, if that was a luck. That's a statement. You go and listen to the statement, and there was no statement made that the young woman was lucky. There is no statement. The statement say, if that was lucky, because it was a full understanding that that could not have been lucky and it could have been worse. And indeed, for a single woman to be raped by 1 man or 10 men is all the bad. That's a statement. If that statement is picked out of the context, I will not apologize for something that is moved from the context to be put out of context, so that a political party is making a campaign out of that. So I'm not going to be part of the campaign, because I repeat, I will never say that the woman is lucky without qualifying what I said. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The third follow-up question is from Honourable Du Toit. Honourable Du Toit.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Minister, are there any ministerial oversight or agreement in place to ensure that illegal immigrant minors are arrested and are indeed processed and deported? Not like the arrests that took place in Orkney in the Northwest Province in October 2021, where more than 500 minors were apprehended. Some of these individuals shot with live ammunition at police officers. They were medically examined for dehydration and then released. It is said that only 35 of these suspects were arrested for attempted murder, causing an explosion and malicious damage to property and conspiracy to commit crime. Minister, the question is, when will a special unit that you referred to in the previous answer that tend specifically with regards to the Zama Zama issue be deployed in the greater Kenneth Kaunda region that includes Matlusana and Orkney in the Northwest provinces to address this Zama Zama issue? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Toit. Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, through the honourable member, I think I have said that the multidisciplinary teams have been established. It could not be all over the country. We're dealing with 6 provinces. It can't be all over the 6 provinces simultaneously. And they have acted on these matters, including, as I've indicated, that Free State was the first province to have this special act from July 2019. We have had put some of them at the places again, like Krugersdorp, like Mhlakeng, and they've been having some successes, including Orkney, where there was a big operation. That operation also run by the Special Task Force of the South African Police and the National Intervention Unit. Rustenburg also, I'm sure the member did see that operation that took place to shut down that mine. I have said that we are creating 18 of these special units to be operating on different districts where the matter has been raised. As soon as we train them, because it could be the dangerous work, they'll have to be trained, they'll have to know their topography and the geography underground, and recruit people that will be able to work closely and with a full understanding how the life goes on there. Will be set to do their work. But that does not mean that work is not happening at the present moment. As I've said, that many are arrested, but also some people have been rescued underground, including women that have been taken underground there to be slaves, sex slaves. They've been rescued by the members of the South African Police. The illicit economy that is going on there, selling everything. We have cut the supply of those things going underground. So the work is continuing and the improvement is made in terms of enhancing the work to deal with illicit mining. Thanks.
Thanks, Honorable Minister. The fourth follow-up question is from Honorable Dango. Honorable Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister, the task team that is working both in Krugersdorp and other areas, is it harmonized between police, the mining sector, home affairs, and other departments that are involved? Is there a team that harmonizes, that looks at these matters to actually resolve those matters collectively? Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Dango. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Well, indeed, there are quite serious talks between the Department of Minerals, the police, and Home Affairs to say it's harmonized in the level where they create the multidisciplinary team from the different departments. I wouldn't say so, but there are different components of work that are supposed to be done by different departments. For instance, the closing of these shafts and the rehabilitation of the mines, that falls under the Department of Minerals. But also dealing with the illegal immigrants that come to deal with the illegal mining here, that would fall within the BMA and the Home Affairs at the special at the present moment. For instance, with these operations, you find that there are 14 and 15-year-olds that are found by the police in these shafts, and they are arrested in these illegal operations. And you ask them where they come from, they tell you that they come from Maputo. Indeed, from Maputo, there is no 14-year-old that would know that there is a place called Krugersdorp. And therefore, the people working on the border and the police, the Home Affairs will have to work on that strong suspicion that there are illegal trafficking, human trafficking and all that. But indeed, it has been agreed, and the departments are working together to create a very harmonized way of responding to this matter, including NPA, justice, and everybody to say this will have to come to an end. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now go to question 6.8, asked by Honourable Ryder. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. The Gauteng province received an allocation of 2,128 entry-level South African Police Service Act employees for the 22-23 financial year, and is currently staffed at 99.33%. In addition, the Gauteng province received 478 posts in the current post-promotion phase 1 for 2022-23. A total overall shortage of 214 posts currently exists in Gauteng province. The National Treasury contract RT46 for repair and maintenance and RT45 for tools and spare parts are in place to expedite the repair and maintenance of vehicles and to improve vehicle availability and the turnaround time for repairs and maintenance. All outstanding vacant posts within the Saps garages are currently being processed for the advertisement and filling of posts to address turnaround times in those garages that do not have adequate personnel, including artisans specifically. The Saps ensures that sufficient budget is allocated for the procurement and the provisioning of critical physical resources and equipment to all members, e.g., uniform, firearms, bullet-resistant vests, and handcuffs. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first follow-up is from Honourable Ryder. Honourable Ryder.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, Minister. Minister, I think you would agree that with the crime stats that were reported last week, combined with the staff shortage and the resource shortage, we should be looking wherever we can to find ways to cooperate with whoever's willing to cooperate us in the police services to ensure that we can get the job done. Now, Minister, let me start by congratulating Saps for their willingness to become involved in the new Joint Operations Center in Mossel Bay, where emergency services, disaster management teams, sea rescue, local CPFs and Saps are now able to share real-time information, share resources and share intelligence in the fight against crime. It's a big step in moving together towards community cooperation. But it's an isolated and unique instance, Minister. We cannot forget that under your watch, the reservist program, which is there to support the police, has been totally hollowed out against all logic. Will you commit, Minister, to immediately opening up the system to allow volunteers to step in as reservists and do the work that the full-time police service seems unwilling to do? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Ryder. Honourable Minister.
Well, thanks, Chair. I would agree with the Honourable Member. The congratulations also goes to the rescue of KZN. There was a very beautiful working together of all the combination of bodies that you have mentioned together with SNDF, South African Police, Emergency Services, and all other private security companies. They worked very well in KZN. And we have agreed that maybe that's a way to go, that as one was speaking to them, coming from different provinces, Western Cape, I saw that they congratulated theirs as they came back, but Gauteng they also. So that has been happening. I think it's broad, a little bit broader than what you have raised. So we thank that. Chairperson, the question of the resources of the South African Police, for some reason, have gone down. One has said this time and again, that in the year 2010, we had 195,000 members of the South African Police, all combined. Today, as we speak, we have 176,000, we're 20,000 down. Thanks at least to the president and the treasurer that have availed the resources to train 10,000 as we speak. That will be released come the 15th of December. And then next year, there'll be another 5,000 who are still making the appeal to make another 10,000 so that we have 20,000 at least in 2 years, which will be equal to 2010 and not coming close to 2022. But the question of the reservist being eradicated under the present system is not very correct. People that are in college as we speak, Chairperson, 3,000 of them, they've been taken from that process. That's why they're staying shorter in the college, because they have been trained before. They understand. We expect them to have a pass out long before December, before at least they know the game. So it's not very correct. So most of them, they've been taken to college to be made a fully fledged police, though we had to relax some restrictions, especially age and driver's license and all that. But because they've been there as a volunteers, they've been given that opportunity. And that opportunity is not closed. The problem that happens here, there are very strict regulations how you join to become the reservist. They know. But as soon as they become the reservists, they want to break those regulations. For instance, one of those regulations is that once they are reservists, they demand to be employed permanently, which then bypasses the strict regulations that puts you in the system. So we will urge those members that they come as volunteers to stay with that lane rather than come as volunteers and then they change the demand, they put the goalpost as soon as they're in. But that system is absolutely kept by the South African police and is not about to be eradicated. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second follow-up is from Honorable Hatebe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, considering the budget constraints, what measures are in place to build the capacity of police officers with regard to treating survivors of gender-based violence? Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Pungad. Honorable Minister.
Well, I've just said, Chair, that we are 20,000 down. The training that is taking place at the college will help because the specialized units must recruit from the police that are basically trained. For instance, the 10,000 that is at the college as we speak, 4,000 already has been earmarked to go and join the public order policing. You'll know that Falam himself and the experts under Professor Africa and the president twice has called this question of the public order policing to be improved. That's what we are doing. But when it comes to the gender-based violence issues, we have increased the capacity of the FCS. We have trained about 900. We have trained about 900 of the members of South African police to specialize at the level of the police station to be able to take the statement as the members of the community come there to open the cases rather than tell them to go back. And that is said time and again. The code of conduct, including how to behave when they are coming to open the case of gender-based violence and abuse of children and elderly is there. Those are trained to make sure that they take the matters forward. More so, Chairperson, we have made sure that things like buccal samples don't run short again at the police station level. The top 30 stations that have more crime when it comes to the gender-based violence have been given extra resources. For instance, we put about 100 million extra that those stations, they share that money so that things like training, things like bacal samples and all the kits that are necessary, supposed to be there. If needs be, they don't follow the red tape of procurement, they just go and procure those things so that we don't run short of these matters again. The question of the DNA, Chairperson, even today, before one came here, was in laboratories. We are quite satisfied that matters are on track. We have reduced the backlog. For instance, here in Western Cape Laboratories, we promised that we might finish the backlog come September. It might be in October because we are 25,000 down, coming from 136,000 down. So we are on track to deal with the matters that deal with the question of the gender-based violence, Chairperson, and the abuse of children and elderly. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The third follow-up question is from Honourable Ndongeni. Honourable Ndongeni.
Thank you, Chair. Ndosi, hayi namhlanje uphendule yacaca uba siyakubhatala. Noko uza kakuhle ngoku. Thank you, Honourable Minister, for the response. Honourable Minister, except for Gauteng Province, what is the allocation for new entry-level South African Police Services Act employees for the 2022 and 2023 financial year? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Ndongeni. Honourable Minister.
Well, Chairperson, unfortunately, I did not do mathematics. I did arithmetic at school. I'm not very good on numbers, but the allocation. But is your dead brain? That's an answer. But the allocation will be according to the strength of the provinces. Jefferson, we've got 3 provinces that gives us nightmares when it comes to the crime stats. Is your Gauteng, Western Cape, KZN. Eastern Cape comes now and again, comes in, comes out. Maybe again, one must take an opportunity to congratulate Mpumalanga province for their crime stats. They are totally green in Mpumalanga province, what they did this time. So this 2,000 you see in Gauteng, if I'm not mistaken, Western Cape is 1,200 and KZN is 1,200. So the rest of the provinces will share the rest of the numbers. But that does not necessarily mean that all the members that came from that province will go back to that province. Because even as you speak now, the province are having different strength. This province, by the way, Western Cape, is one province that has been given a lot of extra resources. This is the only province that for last 18 months, they've got 200 extra police from different provinces under the command of Colonel Mashamba, who comes from Limpopo himself. For last 18 months, we send those here. This is the only province that in Western Cape that has full-fledged anti-gang unit of the 161 members and 47 cars dedicated to them. Others they have, but not fully fledged. When we last trained in 2019, we trained 5,000 recruits in the Republic of South Africa. 1,200 of them were sent in Western Cape, and the rest of the country, divided among themselves 300, 800. So it has been looked well, very well, this province when it comes to policing. Even those police that come from other provinces to work here, 200 every quarterly, they come with their own cars from the different provinces to come and work here. So is one of the well looked after province. Gauteng, we're trying because of, and KZN, most resources will be on those provinces because for us to deal with the crime and reduce the crime, we'll have to deal with those 3 provinces. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The fourth follow-up is from Honourable Motsamai. Honourable Motsamai.
Thank you, Chairperson, House Chairperson. First of all, I would like to say thanks the Honourable Minister for a good work in Ekurhuleni of Tata Zonke Anti-Crime Unit. They are doing very well. Minister, noting with the cruel role played by the police reservists supplementing police officers, why has the minister not relied in the police reservists to assist the police in fighting crime? I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Motsamai. Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, that question is same with the neighbor of Mr. Motsamai.
Confirm the answer.
Chairperson, we do rely on the reservist, but we have taken an extra mile to say maybe it's unfair to keep them reservist all the year. I've just given the figure to say from the reservists, you have taken almost 3,000 and we send them to colleges. They'll come out as fully fledged police rather than reservists. But those places will be filled again with the volunteers that will be there. At no stage that South African police will do without a reservist. The only thing that we'll request is that as they are recruited to be reservists, they shouldn't go and use that position to go extra mile and demand extra. For instance, let me put this way, the age limit for you to join the South African Police Service is 30 years. But the reservists will allow them to go a little bit higher and all that, like driver's license and all that. So it's a question of being flexibility with the reservists. But they are recruited, the stations recruit them, they are allowed. There is no policy that says there shall be no reservists. We'll continue to work with them. They are quite a good multiplier of the numbers when to visibility and the policing. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question 5.8, which is the last one asked by Honourable Malika. Honourable Minister.
The first answer is yes. And 1B is multidisciplinary task teams